Hi there, this is a baby wearing video about creating and maintaining a good seat while doing a back wrap. To do this, I'm going to do a double hammock because we were having this discussion in my local baby wearing group about creating a good seat and maintaining it in a double hammock. So there's a couple of things I'd like to say right off the bat before we start. I'm not a wrapping instructor, I'm just a mom. I have one-year-old twins, so I wrap a lot. I have gathered some tricks along the way, but for proper technique and proper wrapping technique, I strongly suggest that you get the baby wearing videos from Baby Wearing Faith on YouTube, which will show you the proper technique for each carries that she shows. The second, I subscribe to Baby Wearing Faith, and so if you look at my YouTube channel and Babies Make 10, you can probably find a subscription to Baby Wearing Faith. There's also, in one word, woven wrap tutorials on YouTube, which has very good technique for wrapping tutorials. I really like those. So before we start, I just want to talk a little bit more about the seat, what makes a good seat, and how to keep it. So one thing that is very important to remember is that there's a mechanic involved in keeping a good seat, and it goes a little bit like this. Your bottom rail is going under your baby's knees, and the baby's bum is sitting in the wrap. And so when the baby's bum goes down in the wrap, it brings the bottom rail up against the knees. To have the knees slightly above the bum, so the bum lower than the knees, is helping you through gravity. So the bum going down brings the bottom rail up against the knees, and the knees are folding over that bottom rail, and this is what's keeping your good seat. So if your bottom rail is too low or too high, you're not putting all the chances on your side, and your seat is probably not safe. And even if it's safe, it's probably not comfortable for either you or your baby. So let's get started. I'm going to do a double hammock, and my subject will be my son Lucas. One thing I'd like to say as well is that you'll see that Lucas is very cooperative. If you wonder if your baby will ever be cooperative like this, don't worry. Lucas was not always cooperative, and we both worked at it. And I made a point of wrapping him and his sister, because he's a twin, every day. And even for short periods, keeping it fun. If he hated it, I didn't keep it up there, but I would wrap him every day, and then eventually got the hang of it. Now he just lies on my back. So, and hopefully this is what he will do now. So to start my double hammock, first I find the center of my wrap. And double hammock starts a little bit off center. So I will put my center marker on my chest, bringing the wrap around my back, and where the back ended in the middle of my back is my new center. So now I'm going to grab my baby. So one of the important articles of the baby wrapper is the iPhone. There we go. One day I lost my iPhone. I looked for it for an hour. It was in the wrap with the baby. Of course I was looking for my iPhone with the baby in the wrap. So let's get started. I put the baby on my back using a Superman toss, because that's what I'm comfortable with. This is a size 5 wrap. It measures 4.2 meters. So with a size 5, I'm not going to be able to do a full double hammock tied at the front. I'm going to tie it under his bum. I'm putting the wrap around his shoulders. And I'm putting the wrap over his shoulders, grabbing the opposite arm with my hands. I'm grabbing his left arm with my right hand, his right arm with my left hand, and then up he goes on my back. Now that he's on my back, I have a long tail and a short tail. When I started wrapping, I had a really hard time remembering which one was my long tail and which one was my short tail once it was on my back. You start off center, so you should be able to see your center marker. That's the tag right here. And the size where you can see your center marker is your long tail. I'm used to starting my double hammock with the long tail on my right. Now I was chatting with you and it ended up on my left, and instead of making an embarrassment of myself by trying to make a video with the double hammock on the wrong side, I'm just going to pull it. This is a nice broken in wrap, so it's easy to do that. Okay, now I've got my center marker on the right, at the right place. Now the double hammock starts under with a rebozo pass, where the wrap goes over one shoulder and under the other. Your short side goes over your shoulder, and your long side goes under. Here. So the first thing I'm going to do about this seat is I'm going to take my top rails and tuck them under my chin. And while my top rail is nice and snug, it will give me some leeway to work on my seat. To work on my seat, I'm going to reach behind his legs, pull on the wrap, and bring it up under his knees, and let his bum sink. Now I've got the knee slightly above the bum, and because my bottom rail under the knees is what's making that safe seat, I'm going to make sure my bottom rail stays nice and snug. So I'm pulling on my bottom rail, and on the short side, that's going to be tucked under my chin while I work on the long side, I'm going to take my bottom rail, pull it, let gravity help me a little bit by standing up, and I'm going to tuck my bottom rail into my wrap, bring it over my shoulder, fold my wrap over my bottom rail so that it stays nice and snug. Some people like to put it between their knees. I prefer keeping my under my chin. Now I'm going to take my top rail first, and I'm going to work on that. I'm bringing it over my chest, handing it to my other hand, and bringing it up. Now, oh no. One thing you want to make sure is that your bottom rail here doesn't cover the foot, because you're going to create a lot of loose in your wrap if you keep that bottom rail under the foot. So I'm working on my top rail first. There's still some loose. So I'm pulling on the loose on my front and then pulling it. My top rail is nice and snug. I'm going to make sure my bottom rail is nice and snug. And also that it goes, this bottom rail as well has to go behind the knees, under the bum. Right? Because that's what's reinforcing your seat right there, behind the knees. Now, this is coming over my shoulders. I'm going to go grab my two bottom rail on both sides, and I'm going to pull on them and stand up and make sure that that bum sinks and that that bottom rail goes up, right? Now I'm pulling on my bottom rail and putting that bottom rail, folding it in the middle of the wrap, and then folding the other half of the wrap. The other advantage of that is that it makes for a nice flat shoulder that is not cutting blood flow to my arms. I'm going to do the same thing, so make sure there's no loose in my bottom rail, and then punch it inside the bottom of the middle of my wrap, fold it over. There's still some loose. in my chest pass. I don't like this. So I'm going to start over. There we go. When I work on my bottom rail, my top rail, make sure my bottom rail is still nice after. And I'm gonna do the same thing. Pull on my bottom rail, make sure there's no loose. Punch it in the middle of my rack, fold it over. So now I have some nice shoulders. They're nice and flat. I'm going to take my two rails, bring them over his legs on both sides. So over, cross, and then jump a little bit. And I would bring it back, but not skinny enough to tie it at the front with a size 5. So I'm going to tie it under his bum. Here's the iPhone. Now, his weight in the wrap is holding him. I have just one simple knot under his bum, and it's holding. He's safe. I'm going to make a second knot just to be sure, but I don't need to. So now, he's really nice and safe, and my seat is good. I can reach behind in the small of my back to make sure there's still some fabric between him and me, and there is. His seat is nice and secure. His bum is lower than his knees, and he seems to be comfy back there. And so that's that. I hope this made sense, and thanks for listening.